Here.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Channel World Seed. Today we're talking about farmers' participation in value creation mechanisms, an update on royalty collection. So this session is about how plant breeding innovation is funded and sustained over time. Breeders invest enormous amounts of time, science and investment into developing new crop varieties, but unlike many other industries, once a seed is planted and harvested, that genetic material can often be saved and be reused by farmers for future seasons. So today's discussion looks at how different countries approach royalty collection and farm-saved seed systems and what models are working best in practice. We'll learn the findings of an updated international study examining royalty collection systems and value creation mechanisms across wheat and soybean systems in 24 countries, looking not only at the legal frameworks themselves, but importantly how they do operate in practice. I'm joined by four wonderful panelists. Right in the center, we have Miguel Rapela, who is a consultant, and he's the author of these updated studies, and you'll be hearing his presentation in a minute. On the far left here, we have Diego Risso, who's representing URUPOV and SAA. Next to him, we have Lorelei Garagancea from ISF. And to my immediate right, we have Daniel Wood, who is a vegetable farmer and an engine ambassador from Wales. But we're going to go straight to the author of the updated study. Miguel, if you can share a little bit with us all, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, more than 10 years ago, the International Seed Federation coordinated a series of studies on wheat and soybean in order to know about the royalty collection system that operate around the world. Diego and I were part of those studies. Given the time that has passed and the many changes that have been taking place in the seed sector, we considered it appropriate to make an update of these early studies. The study is titled Unlocking Value in the Seed Sector, Value Creation Mechanisms as a Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. Because the study is quite extensive, almost 200 pages long, I will briefly present its main findings regarding value creation and value capture in wheat and soybean. The study covers 24 countries, 13 from Europe, 7 countries from America, 2 countries from Asia, 1 from Africa, and 1 from Oceania. And it's based on a structured questionnaire that examines how different legal, institutional, and operational frameworks influence breeders' ability to effectively collect royalties. The first conclusion of the study is really very important and fundamental. Legal protection alone does not guarantee effective value capture. The key challenge is whether rights function effectively in practice. A second conclusion is also very important. The central issue is the gap between innovation and value capture. In many countries, innovation continues, but the remuneration mechanisms remain incomplete, especially where farm-saved seed is common. There is no single dominant model in the study. Countries have adopted diverse regulatory and organizational approaches, but effectiveness depends more on implementation and coordination than on the institutional design itself. The operational mechanisms are critical. Systems work better when royalty collection is embedded directly into transactions through pricing systems, licensing agreements, downstream collection mechanisms such as endpoint royalties. The enforcement is evolving. This could be one of the most important differences between this study and the previous studies. Many countries are moving toward more proactive and data-driven enforcement tools, including digital monitoring, traceability systems, verification technologies, for example, the use of molecular markers and the use of optical markers. However, in the study, data limitations remain a major challenge. Reliable and comparable information on farm-saved seed or illegal use and administrative costs is still limited in many countries. Private actors play a central role. Royalty collection is largely driven by the private sector, while governments provide the legal and institutional framework. Coordination matters more than structure. Highly effective systems can exist under very different organizational arrangements. What matters most is coordination among stakeholders. As we heard in the presentation, the study is based on wheat and soybean. And wheat and soybean show different dynamics. Wheat systems can rely more on regulatory approaches, while soybean systems are more strongly influenced by biotechnology, patents, and contractual controls. And finally, incentives, communication, and stakeholder engagement are essential. Value capture systems depend not only on enforcement, but also on farmer awareness, incentives, and institutional cooperation. Overall, the study shows that effectiveness of royalty collection systems depends less on formal legal recognition and more on the practical integration among institutions, incentives, enforcement, communication, and stakeholder behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. And Miguel's kindly summarized 200 pages for us in a very short summary, which I know we're going to unpack very shortly. But even you've talked us through the 9 key points of this. But what was the driver of updating these studies in the first place? Why was it needed?
The driver is just to understand that we need value creation. But the value capture is a very complex matter of many tools. The legal framework, and as I said, the incentive, communication, and stakeholder behavior. But among these 4 tools, in my opinion, my personal opinion, communication is one of the more important. The farmers need to know why a value has been created by the seed companies, just to understand the reason that they have to pay for the good genetics.
Amazing. The farmers need to know communication. Daniel, I'm going to come to you as the farmer in the panel. I'm not asking you to speak for all farmers here, but just listening into this conversation, how visible are these conversations to farmers today? And is this something that growers are actively thinking about?
Yeah, I think like any cost is very visible to the farmer, and seed is a big part of that. When we're working out our, at the start of our season, our costs, certified seed will come under that. So, I think it's very, very visible. And obviously we've also got to calculate the volatility of that market, so when we grow something, we don't necessarily know what we're going to get back from it.
Yeah.
But high quality seed is always very, very important, to the farmer, especially as a vegetable farmer like myself. It makes such a big difference, the quality of seed and good genetics, and a lot of farmers would resonate with that. And I think ultimately farmers want, certified seed in certain situations because they want, in essence, to increase their production. So they want to get more potentially money out of that crop and productivity. And I think that makes it like a mutualism in a way, because we're making more money and then the breeders are getting paid for obviously the time they put into that and the research. So I believe really, that money funds innovation, and we need that innovation. We need better varieties in the future for the changing climate.
Amazing. And I know I'm going to come back to you a little bit later, Daniel, on, I guess, striking a balance in the different systems that you're relying on. Diego, I'm going to come to you. This is, of course, an updated study from over a decade ago. From your perspective, how has royalty collection systems really evolved during that time?
Well, in some countries, they have evolved a lot. In others, the good news for this report is that we are gathering a lot of information from all around the world. The basis is there is no one system that one size fits all. But the good news here is for those countries that are thinking on developing new value creation mechanisms, or for those that they already have mechanisms in place, they can get ideas to improve the current ones. So coming back to your question, those that have some evolution, mostly on enforcement activities, on simplifying the systems, and using technology in the systems. So more technology, more IT associated to the systems that at the end of the day provides more data, which is extremely useful, provides more transparency, accuracy, and efficiency. So my invitation will be, once this report is published, to really read it in depth, because there are many ideas to take out from it to be adopted in your country.
Okay, thank you, Diego. We've just heard from Miguel there about one of his findings around legal protection alone. I'm going to come to you, Lorelei. Doesn't necessarily translate into those meaningful economic returns for breeders. Can you explain what the gap is here?
You're asking me this as a lawyer, I guess, and I wish I could answer as a lawyer, but I cannot, because the answer does not lie in formalities. My co-speaker said it very well already. There are practical factors that lead to whether or not legal frameworks, such as plant variety protection, translates into not necessarily economic benefits for breeders only, but whether or not they become a fuel of the entire ecosystem that generates innovation, and then in this context allows breeder to recoup their investments over many years to develop that innovation within a defined, limited time frame. So whether or not that happens, it seems to be apparent from the responses of these 24 national seed associations. That depends primarily on the relationship that exists in the respective jurisdiction with farmers, and this points exactly to what Daniel has said in his first intervention, that it really depends on whether or not farmers see the benefit at an economic level and for their livelihood of the improved seeds. For example, in countries like the Netherlands, it is very easy to collect royalties on farm-safe seeds because there is a generally acceptable general understanding that this matter, this fact itself, is part of an ecosystem. It's not us versus them, it's not one party versus the other. So then the entire process of value creation or royalty collection is not confrontational, it's part of a cycle. And that is, this trust is the main element, I believe. It's not the legal framework. And then there are other elements that are also rather on the practical side. It pertains to what Diego said, is whether or not field data collection is possible, whether auditing mechanisms are in place. And this relates rather directly to how the system is organized in a given country. Some countries manage this through collective management societies, a system that is similar to how royalties are gathered for other IP rights, and this seems to work very well in some jurisdictions. In others, that doesn't exist. But this can create challenges or not. It depends on also on the actors that are present on the relevant market, because, for example, where royalty collection is left for private entities to deal with, that can work very well if the companies have sufficient manpower. But for smaller companies, the solution through collective management societies might be the way to go. And then only at the fifth level, we get to contractual framework and the way that they reflect the actual rights that exist in a jurisdiction. And by contractual framework, I mean very simple agreements, not fine printing. It's just a document that reflects the parties' understanding and that ensures that every relevant stakeholder in the conversation understands what they need to do. Because this is a very practical business, right? It's not about debating rights and obligations.
Thanks so much, Lorelei. Miguel, I'm going to bring you back in here, and I think you might have a slide some slides you're going to share with us. In some countries, farm-safe seed is clearly regulated and linked to remuneration systems, while in others it's left to more private arrangements. What does that look like in practice? Can you talk us through a little bit?
Yes, I don't know if we can see in the screen.
We can. All of the screens have that on, I think. We might need a clicker to move through them if there's a few slides, if we're able to get one over. There's not?
Okay.
Well,
Let's move on to the next one.
one of the questions that we have to respond is that we have two different crops, wheat and soybean. One, wheat is based on conventional breeding, but in the case of soybean, we have also the biotechnological innovations inside the plant varieties. So one of the questions is, what kind of system use the associations that we contacted? They integrate systems to capture from plant variety rights and from patents, and they use separate systems. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So, when we look more closely, we got this picture. Some countries use separate systems, but mainly the integrated systems is the principal way in order to collect royalties. Even in the case that the separate countries, some overlaps questions are related to just one integrated system. So this suggests an important issue. From a practical standpoint, reducing complexity and ensuring enforceability is more important than the difference between legal structures. Related to management and royalty collection systems, as we see in this graph, royalty collection are driven principally or basically by private actors, informants, breeders, rights in the right holder. But at the same time, governments play an important role, establishing the legal framework, providing oversight, and in some cases, supporting access to relevant data. So the key issue in the study is not whether the system is purely public or purely private, but how both systems interact in the real world. And finally, this chart shows a semi-interesting question about how is the management structure that are using all the countries that we put in the study. And as you can see, one third, and one third is divided between collective management, individual companies management, or a mixed system between companies and collective. So, regarding organizational structures, no single dominant emerged from the comparative analysis, so as countries have adopted diverse institutional configurations.
Thank you so much, Miguel. I'm going to bring Daniel back in on a point that you did begin to discuss a little bit earlier, and I might have cut you off, but you spoke a little bit about the diversity of seed systems that exist alongside each other, from commercial seed companies through to open pollinated and heritage varieties. How do you see those systems coexisting in practice?
Yeah, brilliant question. I think really they are mutualistic. Again, I'm going to bring up that word again. I think I wouldn't want to see a system where I could only buy, for instance, open heritage, or I could only buy certified. I think it's really good to have both options. And for instance, I use both myself. Some people just use certified, some people just use heritage. And sometimes they're touted as the enemy of each other, but they both have positives and negatives. I might use a heritage variety if I want to develop a crop that's not commercially viable yet, or I might want to maintain some of that diversity, which is really important when it comes to breeding, because you've got the diversity of those older breeds. For instance, in Wales, we have some apple varieties that have really long storage that modern varieties don't. Whereas, I might want, again, certified seed where I want vigor, or I want production, or You know, like my friend Michael in Antigua, it's really important to him to have certified seed because he needs drought tolerance, he needs heat tolerance, he needs salinity tolerance, which is really hard to do in a heritage variety. So I think, again, they're really mutualistic, and I don't think there needs to be one. And I think sometimes we get an imbalance of that. You know, you're seeing in places like Italy where you're getting illegal grafting of citrus, and then you're losing those royalties, and then your breeders are walking away because there's no point. So, you know, I'd like to see always a balance in it, and I think there is a place for both.
I mean, maybe that is the question, Lorelei, maybe to yourself, maybe to Diego then. Is it being framed a little bit too much sometimes as farmers versus breeders, when really what Daniel's demonstrating is this coexistence, working together? Is that maybe communication exercise, or what do you think of that?
Yes, absolutely. We often say that the seed industry only thrives with seeds that make farmers successful and put them at an economic advantage compared to competitors.
Yeah. And Diego, I might put the same question to you. And then I guess adding on to that as well is obviously this is all going to be about simplicity and trust between both parties as well. If you want growers to engage with these systems, how important is that?
Yes, I think trust is the foundational base of all these systems. And trust might be along all the stakeholders that are part of the system. Because if this is a relation between the breeders that develops the new plant varieties and the farmers, that they get the benefits of their genetics, in the middle of these two stakeholders, you could have in the mechanism different actors, and you need trust within all. For example, multipliers, distributors, even the government. Most, if not all the system, or most of the system, government is not part of the system, of the value creation mechanism, okay? But they need to play an important role in giving the framework for the parties to play in a fair manner, in a win-win relation. And for you to get a win-win relation, you need trust. So that is crucial. I remember I've been approached from a country in my region in Latin America that they were concerned about the rice system. They want to enforce rights through DNA, and so they approached me to how they can strengthen the enforcement activities. So my first question was, which is the level of remuneration you have? And it was less than 30%. So that means that 70% plus was seed being used by farmers that didn't recognize the rights or the value of the genetics. So for that, you cannot amend a system only by enforcement. You need a trustful system that all the parties feel comfortable they are playing in a win-win relationship. So trust is the foundational base of all the systems. So you will go to the report, you will find 24 different ideas, but trust
That's right there.
is in there.
Amazing, thank you.
And on this, Claire, I would like to add on the content of the report that it is mainly meant to provide practical information about how different countries deal with royalty collection, depending on the profile of their industry, the size, the type of companies that there are. It's not meant to be a legal study or to provide a legal analysis of the rights that exist in the law. We also would like to take the opportunity to thank the national seed associations that answered to our questionnaire, because this study is entirely based on the answers that we received, and therefore it's a collaborative effort and subject to improvement.
Laurel, I might stay with you, and I'm just thinking about my opening to the session earlier and talking about the fact that plant breeding innovation, how is it funded and sustained over time, and what could happen if we flipped the switch on this and we didn't protect some of these royalty collection systems? What would be the risk if we weren't able to capture value from these innovations? Like, what is the risk to breeders?
Many of our breeders report figures around 15% invested in research and development of new varieties. So without a limited time frame in which, as I said already, this investment can be recovered, there would be no source of funds to fuel such research. And while existing varieties may perform quite well in the market for now, with increased challenges coming from climate change, these existing varieties might not be good enough, and the need for accelerated innovation might increase. So therefore, the need to have a workable system that can finance these R&D efforts.
And I guess putting that to you, Daniel, there as well, if there wasn't this investment in innovation, you've said quite clearly how important that is to your business and will be to so many other growers. How, talking about building trust, talking about communicating the findings of these studies, maybe where do we need to approach this with growers? So maybe they're coming to the table on this and really absorbing some of the findings on this and taking it seriously?
Yeah, I think it's an education thing, which is not an easy thing to do, I don't think. But I think, what's been said before is that perhaps some of the growers don't even realise the genetics they're using, so that's got to be involved in also the people who sell seeds. So I would say the best thing to do is to help growers understand the variety, why they would want that certified seed, how the best conditions that is to grow.
Yeah.
And then you can also perhaps gain some of that data back from your growers who are growing that variety to help you, prove that the certified seed is worth its cost.
And Diego, I might come back to you slightly on this point, but adding on to it, what makes this conversation so important for the future sustainability of plant breeding innovation? I mean, talking slightly more high level, the importance of this, what does it really mean to the industry?
So everyone knows that seeds are the basis of any agricultural business. Even if you do dairy, whatever farming you do is beef, crops, vegetables, you need a seed. And the farmers know very well how important the value of the genetic is in their business. And because that importance is why we say the value of the genetics need to be recognized. If you want the wheel to keep spinning, you need to recognize.
Yeah.
So if you ask me what is the importance of recognizing, again, that's the foundational base of the plant breeding programs. A creation of a new variety, a development of a new variety takes years. It can take 10 years.
Yeah.
It could take millions. It takes knowledge. It takes expertise. It takes risks. So when the genetics is within the seeds, the farmer goes, purchases the bag, and they know that they have guarantee in there what they are looking for. So you need to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because that will guarantee that next year you will have better genetics.
Amazing. And I might just in the last couple of minutes, I might just come around each of you. Miguel, maybe I'll come to you first as the author of the report. As I guess there's a lot to unpack in your findings. You began right at the start. But what's the main takeaway for those maybe who are just hearing about this for the first time today? What's your sort of main thing you want them to take away as a call to action from today?
Okay, from the study we can arise on some final reflections. I think there are three reflections very important that derive from the study. First, no single model exists for value capture. Value capture systems vary by national context. The second reflection is what matters is not the law, but how it works in practice. And third and finally, the success depends on alignment between law, institution, and implementation.
Thank you. Daniel, I'll come to you. What's your key takeaway and your key message to people listening and watching?
I'd say just be open and do, look at your own research, but be open and don't just cast off one type of seed, and certainly not certified seed, just because you have an assumption that it may cost more and might not be worth the risk, is what I'd say.
Thank you. Lorelei?
I would say that the effectiveness of a system, no matter what it is the certainty to which depends on the certainty with which it is being applied and implemented.
Okay. And Diego?
No, my invitation, as I started, my invitation to those that are really interested in improving their system or developing new ones, they will find in this report very, very useful information. And the other thing is, you have the contact information of those that are putting those systems in place.
Okay.
So it's not only about reading, but also about you can do the follow-up with the real actors. That will help you a lot for your improvements on the system. And definitely my final message will be, we are going the right way. Different countries are finding different ways of developing their own systems. And that brings light to the future and brings more plant varieties to the farmers.
Thank you. I mean, today's discussion, I mean, we're really touching the surface of these studies. I think it has shown that while plant breeders' rights may exist formally in many countries, as we've discussed, the challenge is bringing systems that are practical, trusted, and workable for everyone that's involved. But thank you so much all for your time today, and for the audience for listening in and online. But we are now out of time, but thank you, and I'm sure we can continue these discussions moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you.